Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Tennessee Fats, and today I'm doing another King Conan series review. Now, this is an interesting series, and it's one I don't ever remember coming out in comics back in the day. Came out in 2007. I have zero memory whatsoever of ever seeing this on the shelf. So when I saw it on the racks the other day and I was able to find the majority of it, and then I could finish the run, I was quite happy with myself. So here's what we're going to talk about today. This is King Conan, and it's Conan and the Midnight God. And what it is, it's a quick story that happens just after, well, anecdotally, just after Hour of the Dragon. Now, we'll have my comments about that later on, but effectively what we got here is a nice King Conan story of him running into a scenario and him solving the scenario in his typical King Conan way. So what we're going to do today is we're going to walk through this, and spoiler alert, I'm going to give you the beginning of the story, the middle of the story, and the end of the story, because we're going to go through every issue with this. And at the end of it, I'm going to give you my thoughts of what I thought of this one. So for those of you who don't want that kind of detail and you want to go find it on your own, stop this video now. For those of you who do want to stick around and get my thoughts on this and actually get some exposure to a mini-series that you might not see otherwise, stick around. Let's get into the books. And we're back and let's get right into this one. So this is a story we're looking at. As I mentioned in the intro, it is Conan and the Midnight God. Now, interesting. Let's get some context around this one, shall we? So it's a 5-part story. It's a non-canonical story in that it's not Robert E. Howard. This is clearly something that Dark Horse has written specifically to flush out that whole King Conan sort of miniseries run that they were putting out there. That they were running the same time as they were trying to go in chronological order on their regular Conan stuff. Anyways, so here's issue 1. Now, for those of you who are wondering, if you're looking at this particular book and you're saying, well, Tennessee Fats, look at this fancy art and fading thing. This is a black-covered book, and what you're going to find with black-covered books, for those of you who do collect comics and you like to put them in boxes and put them in plastic, like I do, you want really high-grade ones. This is not what you call high-grade. This is not a fancy artistic thing. This is a fingerprint. If you look really closely here, you can see the grains of, I guess, whoever the first reader of this book's thumb, and 2 digits down here. So when you see these, and if you're buying investment grade, put this down. If you see these and you're buying this because you want to read this, feel free to buy it because honestly, does it matter? You're trying to read it. Anyways, so 5-part story. There were production issues with this one because the first issue, I believe the production date or the release date was supposed to be December 2006. It hit the shelves in January 2007. And I guess there was some sort of artist swap that had to occur here. And it happened in the early issues. I don't know who or how or what, but somehow it screwed up the whole production because issue 5 over here didn't come out until August. So 5 issues, 8 months. I don't know, something strange happened there. Now, when did this happen in Conan's life? Well, in this book 1, which we've got right here, it tells you what happens in year 31, 31st year of Conan's life. And I'd say that's a fairly good fact. It actually explicitly states, hey, it's year 31. Even though he was 14 when he read it was part of the border raid of Venerium. Anyways, so in theory, this takes place in, I guess, what's right after Hour of the Dragon, which is a Robert E. Howard story. But the only reference I could find to that was on a Spanish site that I auto-translated that was talking about the release of this particular series in Spanish. And how it had that fact when the English production sites didn't, I don't know, which makes me kind of go, yeah, I don't know, maybe, whatever. Anyways, into the story, shall we? So, issue 1. Effectively, the story takes place where Conan is hanging out in his castle. His wife, Zenobia, is pregnant with their first child, and Conan's kind of chomping at the bit. He wants to get out there and do something and do some more barbarianing. Logically. That's just this is who Conan is. He's not a thinking king. He's a barbarian king. There's a difference. For those of you who have heard my commentary about King Kull versus King Conan, you know that's what I think of King Conan, so live with it. Anywho, so a Stygian emissary is coming to the castle. Conan, for some stupid reason, don't know why, says, yeah, let him in. That's a great idea. Let's meet the Stygians. And I'm like, Conan does not like Stygians. I don't think this is a good idea. So is this a smart move of a king, or is this a guy who's just looking to pick a fight? I don't know. Anyways, Stygian guy arrives. Rasid. This is him right here. Now, for those of you who are wondering who Rasid is, well, you're the same as me, because none of us know who the hell he is. He's never appeared anywhere else. In fact, the only reference you can find to him and his name is through reading this series, or if you go onto the Google machine there, and you type in Conan and the Midnight God, Dramatis Personae, you'll get everybody else. He won't be listed, but he will be in the actual description, in some descriptions, because other ones don't even know who the bad guy is, because nobody's ever actually read this series, I guess, or at least read it in enough detail to actually summarize it online. Hey, Good job, Tennessee Fats, putting out a video and doing that for us. Thanks a lot. You're welcome, everybody. Anyways, Stygian guy arrives. Conan basically says, yeah, let's have a conversation. Meets him in the castle, and the Stygian dude here, Rasid, says, and this is one of the interesting parts, because it actually references the only other Conan person that should be talked about when you're talking about Stygia, Dothamon. He says, well, as you know, Dothamon's economic policies have ruined us. So I'm out here just trying to make peace. And Conan basically says, hey, why don't you GTFO? Now, why you would have had them come in just so you can tell them to GTFO, I don't know. That seems odd to me, but he did it anyways. Strange. Anyways, Conan then heads back to bed that night. Oh, he does say you can stay the night, but then GTFO, because I guess that was him being nice. Anywho, he goes to see Zenobia, says, you know, things are going well, but I kicked him out. And Zenobia's like, yeah, that's good. And then suddenly she goes into labor. Conan assumes, instead of this being just part of natural childbirth, that this is obviously sorcery, and says to the Stygian, you are out tonight. Get going. And the Stygian turns around and says, oh, by the way, congratulations on the birth of your heir. Well, how would he have known if he didn't cause it? If he just kept his damn mouth shut, everything would have been fine. He would have got away. But he didn't. A lot of characters being really dumb here, apparently. Anywho, he heads back to Zenobia. Zenobia's not doing so well. And he says, you know what, this is obviously sorcery. So even though this guy's an emissary here from Stygia, and he came under a white flag of truce, go kill him. Because you know what, it's not a war crime if nobody survives. Clearly. So anyways, he sends out his people, because he can't go do it himself, because he's busy, you know, the whole being a doting father. And now here I am, I'm being supportive. And they slaughter all the Stygians except for Rasid, who magically, guess what, is magic, and blows off some sort of crazy thing. Anyway, the son is stillborn, and Conan is not happy. And at this point in time, I guess he's really got his excuse here to go wage war on something. He says, oh, by the way, tell everybody to get ready, because we're going to invade Stygia. End of book 1. Now, there's a lot in there that really left you sort of going, really? Why would Rasid have said that? He's getting away scot-free if he did do something magical to cause this. Why would he blah, 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 blah? Loose lips sink ships. Why would Conan have invited him in just to turn around and say GTFO? Why would Conan have jumped to the conclusion, obviously this is magical, so we're going to slaughter these guys? Oh, by the way, just because we know it's magical, we're going to literally invade a country. Odd, I says. Anyways, book 2. Book 2, we're getting now. I'm still wondering who the Midnight God is. I didn't see it in that. Anywho, book 2, the army is heading south. So for those of you who have your Hyperborean maps out, you know where Aquilonia is. Conan is heading south. So he's going through Ophir. He's heading through, what's the other one he has to go through? Koth, I think. He goes through a bunch of nations on his way through. And basically everybody is standing back and saying, okay, you're the world's largest army, dude. You just go do you. Just keep going. Don't stop here. And Conan, to his word, does that. Well, unfortunately, these fine young men in Koth decide, no, we're actually going to stand in the way, and they get slaughtered. So this is really showing King Conan saying to himself, you know what, I'm pretty serious about what I'm doing here. This isn't some half-assed thing. We're literally going to kill an entire country if necessary. That's serious. Anyways, he gets to the river, effectively, where he's going to be going into Stygia. As soon as it's like Caesar crossing the Rubicon. He's going to head over the Styx, I think is the name of the river, and head into Stygia. And then, of course, Shem sends somebody along, because this is where he is. And the Shemish emissary says, well, my king isn't here because he doesn't entirely trust you. Sure, for good reason. Because Conan's acting a little illogical here. And he says, listen, I'm going to wage war on Stygia and kill everything there. And the Shemish guy is like, yeah, I'm not entirely too good on that. Well, here's what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to give you all of our super secret troop moving boats that we've been building in super secret, because we're neighbors with the Stygians, just in case we ever have to invade them. So you use them to get your men over there. And if you lose, well, that's kind of bad, because then we're all effed. So just make sure you do a really good job when you get down there. So, all right, well, I guess this is what we're doing now. Conan, at this point in time, and this is, I know there's a glare, but it's okay. You guys will deal with this, all right? Interesting. It's here that Conan actually shows the most kingly knowledge or thought process. He admits to his number one guy. This is like Bob to the Joker in the first Batman movie. Bob, you are my number one. Anyways, see, he says to him, it's like, dude, I'm going to go over the river here with 5 of our best guys. And if I don't come back in 5 days, you go in, get my body, and then come home. He says, it wasn't my real intent to really destroy Stygia here. It was just to do a bit of a saber rattling here, to let the world know, hey, I'm the big lion in the mix. Everybody back off. And Palantes, that's the guy's name. He's kind of like, really? You didn't tell me this up until now? And Conan's like, listen, I didn't want you to... You needed to think that we were going to invade. And you're like, huh, well, I guess that's kind of smart. He did recognize that the other kingdoms were just getting a little, I don't know, chomping at the bit like he was. And maybe the show of force is good for peacekeeping purposes, even though you've just slaughtered an army in the process, and you're planning on slaughtering more of an army when you get to Stygia. I don't know. Hyperborean mentality. Anyways, he says, okay, let's do this. And off he goes. 5 dudes, they get in a boat. And this is when this happens. River monkeys. Yes, river monkeys. I know. They come out of nowhere, slaughter one of the dudes, kill all the horses, and somehow they sink his boat. I don't know how river monkeys would do that. Those are tough river monkeys. Anyway, Conan ends up swimming for the shore, but in the meantime, he has a nice little flashback where he's thinking about Zenobia, and makes it to shore with his dudes, only to find that the river monkeys are apparently trapping souls and torturing them, and everybody's dead, except for the river monkeys. Really weird. And he's like, okay, well, we're here. We're fighting ghosts and river monkeys. Everybody get ready to go, because this is going to be fun. Odd book, too. So, still, no idea who the Midnight God is. Conan's showing some thought process here. That's kind of cool. And really, you've got him in Stygia. This is where he wanted to be. Now, I particularly like this one. I like the cover on this one. This one just sort of says something to me. Now, for those of you who don't know much about Tennessee Fats, let me tell you something. I am freaking terrified of snakes. Well, not terrified. I hate snakes. I really don't like them, which is funny because, never mind, it's a long story. But serpent men and men serpent, both of which exist in Robert E. Howard's Hyperborean Ages and in ancient Atlantis with Kull. Not a big fan of them. Not a big fan. I don't like those guys. Like, if you want pure nightmare fuel, you read that, what is it? The Mirrors of Thuza Dune story. Oh yeah, Mirrors of Thuza Dune. Here's a hint from your good uncle Tennessee Fats here. If you hate snakes and you want pure nightmare fuel, read the Mirrors of Thuza Dune, which I believe was it was a black and white magazine. Was it Conan the Barbarians? I don't remember. Go Google that. Read that. Oh, ooh, yeah, ooh. Snake people. Anyways, this issue. So we started off with Conan. He's here. He's fighting ghosts and, river monkeys. And he's not having a good time of it. He's slaughtering a lot of river monkeys. River monkeys are just keeping going. And now the wizard, Ra-Sid, makes an appearance. He's talking through one of the river monkeys saying, hey, by the way, you can kill these guys all day long. It don't matter because I knew you were coming for me. So now you're getting a sense of, wait a minute, Ra-Sid has planned this whole thing out because he's been egging Conan on. It's kind of weird. And what are the ghosts doing here? Why are river monkeys able to conquer ghosts? And why is everybody in Stygia dead? A lot of things aren't making sense here. And then one of Conan's guys dies, and his ghost is also trapped. But one of the locals is showing up and says, no, dude, you can fight these things all day long. It's not going to do any good. They're only here to keep the ghosts from disappearing into the river, or anybody else from disappearing over the river. So if you just go away, and they continue to trap the ghosts, everything will be fine. Weird story, right? Anyways, Conan listens to this guy, and here's the nightmare fuel. Freaking snake people. Turns out the ghosts have been held by the river monkeys so these snake people can show up and herd them off to the south. Conan's like, all right, dude, we're going to trust you. My men are going to arrive in about 5 days. And when they do, tell them where I went. And hopefully they're going to survive the river monkeys. And he just wanders off. So he's planning on waging a one-man war through Stygia with effectively 3 dudes now and him. Typical Conan. So he's heading for the south. A lot of people are dead. Finds out that the kid has actually been following him. And this is where we get a sense of what the hell is going on in Stygia. Because we run into crazy old crone lady. Crazy old crone lady has been watching this all go along. And tells us that Ra-Sid is actually not one of the chief priests down there. He's actually a banished or not so good priest with Thothamon. And that the whole area down there seems to be traveling backwards in time. Because creatures that shouldn't exist. Such as... And we just saw them earlier, by the way, just in case you're wondering who it was I'm referring to. Get ready for it, because you're going to get, right here on the cover, freaking snake people. So snake people, for those of you who don't know, were majority wiped out by Kull. The last of them were wiped out by Conan and his son Con, or Conan II, in the first Marvel King Conan series, which was back in, what, the late 70s, early 80s. Anyways, so she's saying, you know, time is going backwards, and he's not a good guy. He's actually a bit of a dip. And I don't side with him because, you know, I'm Thothamandu. But hey, check out what I got in the pit. And she's captured one of the snake people. Just freaky. And she's like, oh yeah, well, these are snake people that actually worship the god before Set, the great devourer. And they were created by that particular god as basically his perfect killing machine. And you're like, okay, now we're getting a little bit of mythology going before Set, before. It's like, okay, this is a pretty good story. And of course, crazy old Conan crone lady, what does she do? She goes crazy and decides to throw one of Conan's men down to the snake lady, and snake lady kills it. And Conan says, oh yeah, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to tackle you, and you're going down there with me. And they do. And the snake lady cuts the crone in half. And Conan gets into the fight. The kid actually dives in there, gets a bit of a nick on the cheek. And Conan ends up cutting both of the arms off this snake woman and capturing it and saying, you're going to lead me to the rest of the snake people and to Rasid. All right. A bit more of the story is flushing out now. Nightmare fuel's kicking in. I'm not too comfortable with the whole story here. There's snake people, but you know, we'll get through this. Good should win at the end of the day. Issue number 4. All right, here we go. Conan is leading armless snake woman down through, well, I guess armless snake woman technically is leading Conan down through Stygia as they go backwards in time towards where I guess Rasid is going to be. And Conan's men are like, you know, this isn't going so good. Conan's like, yeah, it'll be fine. But if you want to leave, you can. Like, no, I'm with you to the end. But, you know, it's just not such a good idea. Anyways, Kid says, you know, I'm going to follow you to the end, even though Conan says, you should probably leave. And Kid's like, no, I'm going to do this. And Conan's like, all right, well, here, at least have a proper blade. I don't know if that's really good fatherly advice, but I don't know if that's what they're going for. Anyways, Palantines has waited a certain number of days that were necessary, and he decides to make his way across the river where he's attacked by, guess what? River monkeys. I love river monkeys. They're probably the greatest creation of this entire series. Anyways, well, besides the snake women, but they're horrifying. Anyways, Conan finds his way down there, and he finds that there's a tornado of souls that is being fed up into something, and that the snake women are doing this, which you can only assume is going to this one before Set sort of god person, the devourer. Anyways, this hawk thing, because Conan's actually being successful and being stealthy, comes out of nowhere, makes a whole bunch of noise, and attracts all the snake people. Because guess what? The hawk thing has been basically being the eyes of Rasid through the entire trek south. Now, here's the fan theory for you today. What if this wasn't the eyes of Rasid the whole time, but was actually the eyes of Thoth-Amon the whole time? Knowing Rasid was being a dip, knowing he was doing some bad stuff behind his back, and quite frankly, but also hating Conan vehemently, and just wanting Conan to get after the whole process. It could be, you don't know. Anyway, Conan and his men end up fighting a whole bunch of these snake people, and of course the river monkeys are continuing to slaughter Conan's men. And Conan finds himself the kid unfortunately gets killed here. Conan finds himself basically at the bottom of this hurricane and decides to climb up this hurricane of souls to get away. Well, Palantines and the rest of the guys have made it across the river, but they're recognizing there's a whole bunch of corpses here. And they know that a whole bunch of more boats are going back and forth, so he's warned everybody else, hey, by the way, beware of river monkeys, but just keep coming. Anyways, Conan's continuing to find his way upwards. He's got his guys following him, and then Conan ends up falling into, we'll get back to this one in a second, falls into the middle of, here we go, the actual thing, and ends up meeting a whole bunch of other gods that are talking to him. Kind of interesting. Now, what happens in the meantime, though, is we actually have a vision where we have Rasid explaining that he has actually stolen Conan's son's soul at birth, which is why the child was born stillborn. Okay, all right, so Conan may have been right on that one. And guess what? All the corpses that have been left lying around all over Stygia, yeah, they're zombies. And they're now going to start slaughtering everything. All right, well, good lead up into issue number 5, the final part here. So what the heck is going to happen? How is Conan going to solve this problem? Now, he's talking to a bunch of other gods. The other gods are not the Midnight God. Maybe they're going to help him out. Who knows? How's Conan's men going to survive? Who knows? What about the river monkeys? Who knows? Anyway, you get the guys talking to the old gods talking to Conan here at the beginning. They're like, listen, Rasid's not a good dude. But by the way, you know this old devourer thing? When it was first fought back, take a look at the injury here. And they're very clear. Be very aware of the injury because old things bear old wounds. And it's at this point in time they disappear, and Ras Sid appears with the zombified form of the child that was following Conan. And he says, you know, oh, I guess you're talking to the old ghosts that live down here. Yeah, don't bother listening to them. Oh, and by the way, the Devourer needs to come here. And needs to come here with something that's really precious to you. Not quite sure why that whole thing happened. And he says, at first I thought it was going to be your infant son, but clearly I see you're actually more attached to this guy because you actually feel responsible for his death the way you would, like, as a father. And Conan's like, that's not cool. That's not cool at all. So the giant Devourer thing starts oozing out of the child's body. Again, Palantides is continuing to fight off zombies with everybody else. Again, what you get here is a real sense that the evil god is coming, but at the same time, you're balancing that time and what's occurring at the contemporaneous, which is Palantides trying to survive against basically an entire nation of zombies. Anyways, as we know, Conan's pretty good at fighting gods and lizard and tentacle-y things. So despite the fact that Palantides and the dudes are not having two at a time, he's continuing to just fight along. And while he's doing this, Ras Sid is basically just talking garbage. Really, you're not looking for a lot here. The bottom line is, oh, and by the way, what we do find about it, the Devourer is even though he craved these snake women, he has no problem with squishing them just for the hell of it. What you effectively have is Conan finding his way up to the old wound. He finds the old wound, stabs into it, starts ripping material out of it. Sorcerer Dude has been absorbed into the monster. You don't even want to get into the details of how that happened. He's sitting there back-mouthing Conan the whole time. Conan continues hacking until effectively the god dies. Like literally drops dead. And with that, all the zombies just sort of wander off. They don't drop dead. They wander off, which kind of makes me wonder what happened to them. Anyways, Conan's army ends up finding him because he's been wandering through the desert carrying a whole bunch of heavy weight. And at the end of the day, he gets all the way back to Zenobia. Let's get back here. Gets back to Zenobia, and you find out that his one trophy that came into the whole thing was he brought the sorcerer's body back and stuffed it and kept it in his castle. Kind of an interesting story. That was a pretty quick ending to the story there. I mean, I don't understand chronologically how Stygia was going backwards in time. That's kind of weird. I don't really get that. And I don't kind of get what the ramifications were of that. Like, did they actually solve the problem? Did all of these crazy, horrifying snake women disappear at that point in time? What really happened there? And I guess everything just worked out. I guess you're just supposed to assume that everything worked out and everything's fine in this one. I don't know. What do I think of this story overall? Let's get some conclusion time here. Conclusion time. All right. What do we think? I think it was a good story overall. I think this was well done. I think this was a nice one-off piece as a King Conan story. I liked... how would I describe this? I liked the fact that they were showing the brashness of King Conan. As you all know, I see King Conan as a barbarian king. He goes out, gets stuff done. He doesn't waste time. There's King Kull at the same time, juxtaposing against him as a thinking king, but Conan is really an action king. He gets out there and he does stuff without brooding over it. Just instantaneous action, delivery, let's go. So he's good in that way. And I like that aspect. I liked how they really drew that out. The art throughout the story, I don't think it suffered. I think it did fairly well. The covers were really neat. As I say, I really like the art on this one. I like the way that they literally split that cover there. I think that was a good thing. And I like the painted style. I think it really does a good job. It needed more Thothamon. It really did. Remember that fan fiction theory that I threw in there where I said, well, what if this flying bird thing that Conan thought was Ras Sid spying on him the whole time was actually Thothamon spying on him the whole time? We've seen Thothamon do that in other Conan stories. We've seen him do that in, what was the story that we just did this in a battle royale. It was Black Colossus. Yeah, where the vulture was Thothamon watching, what's that guy's? Natok, and Conan fight it out. So you've seen that before. That would have been really cool to work into this. But as we know from when I gave you the context at the beginning, this whole series was fraught with production problems. Were they trying to shorten it? Were they trying to keep it short? I don't know. But I would have liked to have seen more of that. But overall, I think it was a good story. For a non-canonical Conan story, I think this was well written. It fits in nicely. There's no serious long-term ramifications other than the fact that you now know that Conan and Zenobia have had a miscarriage, which, you know, character development-wise, that says something. And it says something more to the characters as they grow and what their own personal stories are. So there's something to that. And I think having that more in the background now as I read more Conan and Zenobia stories, specifically by Dark Horse, that chronologically happen after this, I'm going to know that now, and it's going to give me more context. So I like that. Do I think this was a good series, and do I think you should pick this up? I think the average Conan reader would enjoy this. This was very much a ramshackle, just run through, have fun, barbarian your way along, slice everything, snake people, river monkey story that had ghosts, fighting a god, King Conan type stuff, Pallantine's bickering with him, Conan being an actual intelligent king, and on top of that, you got foreign relations where he's basically just storming through other countries. This was a good Conan ramshackle story. I would encourage you to find this, pick it up. I believe there is a trade paperback of where these were collected where you can actually get that. So you should do that. So that is my advice to you. So do I like this? Yes. Should you buy this? Yes. I would encourage you to. Maybe you don't want to buy one that's got fancy fingerprints on it like mine does, but, you know, maybe you want to get one just like with fancy fingerprints because it gives it character. But, you know, that's just another thing altogether. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this one. And we've saved the obligatory YouTubing to now. If you've enjoyed this one, give the video a thumbs up. If you like Robert A. Howard content and the conversations that I discuss on this channel, by all means, subscribe to the channel. I've been getting a lot more subscribers lately, and honestly, it's very, what would be the word of it? It's very empowering. It makes me very happy to actually see these people are actually appreciating what I'm doing. Because being a Conanophile is not a common thing. There aren't too many of us out there, and I appreciate that I'm getting your support and that you're actually subscribed to the channel. And by all means, throw comments down below. If you have any questions about this or anything I glossed over, stick a comment below. If you disagree with me and you think this story sucks, write a comment below and tell me why. I don't think I'm going to be swayed on this one. I like this story. But feel free to stick that comment on down there. Everybody, I hope you enjoyed this one. We'll see you in the next video.